I want to go to HHS Secretary RFK Jr., who's making a big announcement advancing women's health. Let's take a listen.
I want to begin by acknowledging the Second Lady of the United States, Usha Vance, who's here today to celebrate a new era in women's health. And we're grateful for your presence and for the attention that you're bringing to this historic announcement. I also want to recognize Secretary of Labor, Lori Chavez de Remer. And thank you again for standing with us. And a big hello to my friend, First Lady of West Virginia, Denise Morrissey, and thank you for being with us today. I also want to recognize my wife, Cheryl Hines, and my daughters, Kat and Kik, who are here. For more than 2 decades, the American medical establishment turned its back on women. Millions of women were told to fear the very therapy that could have given them strength, peace, and dignity through one of life's most difficult transitions, menopause. That ends today. The FDA is initiating the removal of a broad black box warnings from hormone replacement therapy products for menopause. We're challenging outdated thinking and recommitting to evidence-based medicine that empowers rather than restricts. When prescribed responsibly and started early, hormone replacement therapy transforms the lives of women. Hormone replacement therapy has been found to reduce the risks of cardiovascular disease and mortality by as much as 50%, Alzheimer's disease by 35%, bone fractures by 50 to 60%, as well as reducing cognitive decline and all-cause mortality. In other words, extending the lives for as much as 10 years. It helps women sleep better, think more clearly, and live fuller, longer, and healthier lives. In short, it restores balance, not just hormonally, but emotionally and physically. That's why in 1999, approximately 27% of postmenopausal women took hormone replacement therapy. But then in 2002, a study called the Women's Health Initiative found that women taking hormone replacement therapy may have an increased risk of breast cancer diagnoses, not mortality, but diagnoses. The study was not statistically significant, but it triggered a media frenzy and led to the FDA applying unscientific black box warnings to all hormone replacement therapy products in 2003. The label was designed to frighten women and to silence doctors. It warned of diseases and dangers that the data simply did not support. Bureaucrats at the FDA reacted out of fear, not gold standard science. And instead of correcting the record, the medical establishment doubled down in groupthink. The consequences have been devastating. Since that decision, more than 50 million American women have been scared away from treatments that could have eased their suffering and extended their lives. Before the panic, 1 in 4 women used hormone replacement therapy. Today, it's fewer than 1 in 20. That's not progress, that's neglect, that's malpractice. We can no longer accept a culture of fear that blocks innovation and keeps patients from proven therapies. But today, thanks to President Trump's bold leadership and unwavering commitment to restoring trust in public health and the courage of Commissioner Marty Makary, the FDA is correcting that mistake. After a thorough, evidence-based review of decades of scientific data, an expert panel, and public testimony, the FDA is announcing today that it will remove the misleading black box warnings from all HRT products. For the first time in a generation, the FDA is standing with science and standing with women. The era of ignoring women's health is older. The era of patronizing women is older. The FDA will follow the science, and America's women will finally get the care, the respect, and the honesty that they deserve. Today, we are restoring integrity to medicine, restoring faith in public health, And we are restoring balance to the lives of millions of women who have been ignored for too long. And that's what it means to make America healthy again. And now it's my honor to introduce my friend, Dr. and Commissioner Dr. Marty Makary, who will share some more about this landmark decision and the steps that FDA is taking to improve the lives of millions of women.
Thanks so much.
All right, we're going to continue to monitor this news conference. We'll get back to it. I want to bring in our CNN medical correspondent, Meg Terrell, right now. Meg, first of all, what more can you tell us about these new labels?
Yeah, well, so what's going to happen is right now for products of things like estrogen, which are used for menopause hormone therapy, if you look at the sort of drug information in the label, there's this big black box, a physical black box written at the top of this label that includes the warnings of risks for things like cardiovascular disease, stroke, breast cancer, and dementia. And what the FDA is saying now is it's taking the steps to remove that black box warning. So that won't be the first thing if you were looking at the drug label that you would then see. And this comes after it's essentially been found within the scientific community that the results of that big government study that we heard the secretary talking about, it came out in around 2002, and it warned that the use of menopause hormone therapies could raise the risk of things like that. And so essentially since then, it's been found that some of those risks were misrepresented, overstated, and that typically within 10 years of menopause onset, this can be a really safe and beneficial thing for women to use, not just to prevent symptoms like hot flashes and night sweats, but also for potential longer-term benefits like preventing bone fractures and things like that. So what the FDA is saying is essentially within the next few months, we're going to start to see that change in those labels. And what they hope then is that removes some of the fear around prescribing menopause hormone therapy for a lot of women who could really benefit from it, guys.
So what will the new labels, Meg, warn women about?
Well, they'll still have some of those warnings. They'll put them into context, but it just won't be that absolute strongest warning, that big black box at the top of the drug label. So it'll note that different scientific studies have found different things, and there are still contraindications for some women for using this. And so it's really important that women talk with their healthcare providers about how to most appropriately think about their own situations when it comes to risks and benefits of these kinds of hormone therapies.
All right, Meg Terrell reporting for us. Meg, thank you very, very much, Pamela.
All right, so here now to help us dig deeper, Wolf, is Dr. Mary Claire Haver, an OBGYN, a menopause certified practitioner. She is also the author of the New York Times bestseller, The New Menopause. I follow her on Instagram, and she is a leading voice in this area. Dr. Haver, I want to start with your reaction to this. How significant is it?
I feel like this is a very big win for women and for women's health. We've gone to the FDA for over a decade asking to have these black box warnings modified because it really represents a lot of fear for patients. So I had multiple times in my clinical practice where I would prescribe something like vaginal estrogen, safe, efficacious, really almost no systemic absorption. She goes to the pharmacy, she gets her medication, she gets home, she opens that warning, and she's terrified and calls me in a panic. And I think now we can replace panic with precision.
So let's talk a little bit more about that replacement of panic with precision and what this means practically for women in menopause or even perimenopause, because now from everything I gather, even if you're in perimenopause, it might be a good idea to look into hormone replacement potentially.
Potentially. So we know that the benefits of hormone therapy, definitely quality of life, there's no question. It is the gold standard of treatment for hot flashes, which can begin in perimenopause. It's also FDA approved for the prevention of osteoporosis, therefore hopefully preventing up to 50% of fractures of long bones in our bodies as we age.
And tell us a little bit more about the considerations you make as a doctor in terms of what a woman might be going through and what kind of hormone replacement you might provide them, because this really is about precision and nuance.
Right. So there's a lot of nuance to this. When a patient comes in and she's having hot flashes, night sweats, vasomotor symptoms, the conversation initially begins with what are her goals, what are her risks and benefits, does she have any contraindications like a tumor that is being fed by estrogen, like a breast cancer, does she have a recent history of a thromboembolic, like a blood clot? You know, those are all things we have to consider. However, for most women, at least before the age of 60, it is safe and beneficial and will give her the best chance of the best quality of life.
And just to reset for our viewers, because I remember my mom going through this. She actually went off of hormone replacement therapy because of this Women's Health Initiative study. Yeah, exactly. And I remember at the time it was a big deal. There was a lot of fear that these hormones could cause breast cancer because of this study. Just help us understand the different iterations stemming from that study.
So there are multiple forms of estrogen therapy, and unfortunately the black box warning extended to all. So when we talk about nuance, we have local estrogen therapy, like for the vagina, the vaginal area. Most women will suffer from genital urinary syndrome of menopause, which causes recurrent UTIs, pain, discomfort, dryness. And so almost all patients, I would say 99% plus, are candidates for that particular therapy without any of the warnings. When we talk about systemic, again, it gets more nuanced. How old is she? How long from her menopause has it been? What are her personal goals? Does she want to reduce her risk of osteoporosis? You know, do we have a bone density? So it just really opens the door for a lot more effective counseling. And also a lot of clinicians were scared when they saw the warning. We have a whole generation of physicians who really haven't been trained how to prescribe hormone therapy safely.